Meta. Let's start the show off.
Yes.
Start the show off with Meta. Slight pullback today, but blockbuster earnings report last week, man. They went
Incredible.
crazy right after they had Zuckerberg in front of Congress and made him apologize.
Which was insane, but we'll talk about it.
That was a moment.
Yes,
That was a moment.
they made him apologize and all of that, and kept his composure. And the next day, the very next day, Meta stock went up over $80. And it was going crazy. Earnings report, blew out earnings, announced the stock buyback and dividend plan. So a lot of money was made. I think he personally made $30 billion
In a day.
that day. So it was one of these things, man. Meta is here to stay.
Yeah.
So
hold on, before we go any further though, hey dog Tyler, I'm going to issue my apology to you. So point number one, TikTok is not taking over IG. Hold on, let me say that again.
The moment we've been waiting for.
TikTok. Damn. Shout out to the Chinese Communist Party, but damn, what happened? But TikTok is not overtaking IG, so I'm going to lead with accountability. Now, for everybody who Ian's wrong about Meta, I said the death of Facebook, and then they changed the name. Now I'm gonna get into what I got right and what I got wrong later too, but I want to issue my apology to start. The TikTok is not overtaking IG at this moment.
I appreciate
stuff that the senator did. That was performative bullshit too.
Say it again.
Oh yeah, the senator. Which the senator?
You want to apologize to the parents? Like no one knows who you are, sir.
That's what it is. It's all clout to try to get their name.
Yeah.
But the Meta thing, it's one of these things, right? Where sometimes in life, what PD
Don't be graceful with the punch.
No, as PD Crack once said, I ain't Hove, I just know what I know. So sometimes in life, I'm not an expert on a variety of different things, but there are a few things that I consider myself an expert on, and social media is one of them. And the earnings report is one thing, and but I just knew that Meta had a stranglehold on the culture. When you look at Instagram, and then traveling a lot overseas, and then noticing that everybody uses WhatsApp, and then still realizing how powerful Facebook is, I'm just like, I don't know if Meta's going to fall. And then it had its they trying to send me to Airborne.
Yo, come on, man. Come on. That's close proximity, bro.
So the sponsored by Alka-Seltzer.
And I would like to just acknowledge that I've been left out this equation. I also said that Meta would not die just based on sheer numbers. Mine was more of an analytical look at the company. But I appreciate you acknowledging that, right? And I know that you'll go back into the social media part of the actual function of the app and the function of the company, but the numbers don't lie, right? Like when we talked about it, and that was like probably November of 22, it was at a point where we started to see decline in active users, and we saw
it was even before then, yeah.
And then the congressional hearings, which is interesting because we watched it have the largest decrease in market cap value in the history of the stock market.
Yep.
Only for 18 months later for them to turn around and have the largest appreciation of market cap in the history of the stock market. We're talking about an incredible turnaround. So it's tough to predict that, right? Like it's tough to predict that. So it's like if anyone's like you were wrong, you were historically this has never happened before, right? So let's put that in context. I just want to keep going. I was feeling while you get in the water. Go ahead.
So I say that to say sometimes in life you never encourage somebody to invest off of feeling. You never encourage somebody to invest just because, but there is some science to actually knowing a product, having a strong pulse on it, and sometimes something because you're just very entrenched in the situation, which gives you an advantage over Wall Street insiders or people that might be looking at charts. Sometimes you just know.
Oh my God, was that a shot at Ian Rashad?
No.
We're gonna do it for him this year. Oh my God, they're finally getting back into it. They want this so bad. You heard what he said. He ain't your chart master. When you gonna hold your
Throw
boy
your charts
accountable?
out. Throw your charts out.
Nah,
Don't
nah,
read the earnings.
nah. So, but
Get
but
on social media.
but I will say this about TikTok. So if you look at, we put the top 5 apps, right? So the number 1 app is Facebook with 3 billion users.
By far.
YouTube with 2.4 billion
Mhm.
users. WhatsApp with 2 billion users. Instagram with 2 billion users, and TikTok with 1.5 billion users. So TikTok is very formidable
Formidable opponent.
situation. And it was crazy because Meta actually tried to buy TikTok. So, and they got blocked by the government. So imagine if they actually own TikTok. Now it's over.
Dynasty.
It's over.
No,
4,
not
you got,
good for Sean.
they already have 3 of the top 5 apps. They would have 4. And then Messenger is a top 10 app as well.
So I mean, theoretically, doesn't that make it over already though? If you got 3 of the top 5?
No, I'm just saying that's why they're so strong.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying if they had TikTok with that, then it's just lights out, ladies and gentlemen.
That's
So, but I have to say TikTok is still around, and at some point in time, they still do have to have, they have a TikTok problem. They still have a TikTok problem.
Yeah.
And you know, it's something that they have to address, because it's not like Vine. All of the other companies they were able just to get rid of. Either they purchased them out or they just stole, like, so Vine, Snapchat, what's the other one? There's a few, but
a few in the grave.
Yeah, TikTok is still around. They have not been put underground yet. So I will say that. But you know, I just think that Mark Zuckerberg is he's definitely one of the greatest CEOs of all time. And I think that, you know, regardless
this era,
regardless how you feel about him, I'm just saying from a business standpoint, right? To, you know, rebrand the company, go into the metaverse. That doesn't work. Okay, keep your composure. Look at the holes. Just keep working. You know, block out the noise. The guys go in front of Congress every single week at one point. Like,
yeah, it's crazy,
you know,
yo.
That's a stressful situation, right? And then to lead the company back to beating earnings, to, you know, that's not easy to do, right? So I do think that a lot of credit he has to receive a lot of credit from a leadership standpoint to be able to steer that ship back on track, and now they're back forward again.
I mean, it's an incredible feat. They increased in monthly users, they increased in daily users, and so they're doing something right. The stock buyback is, I mean, I don't know if anybody saw that coming, right? When you're talking about taking shares off the market, and now
it was definitely time.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Well, people, and even that, people are like, well, what does that even mean? So just to give context, right? When you see a company buy back stocks, that means they're buying back their own stock, which means there's less stock for the public, which means the ones that remain now increase in value. And so that's a brilliant move. Then the dividend play, we've made so much that we're now going to give money back to shareholders,
which is a smart way to keep retention inside of the stock. I'll talk about it in a second.
You just keep people into the stock. You admittedly talked about your flaws with the metaverse, right? The initial amount was 50 billion. They said that they spent about 13 to 15 billion. Okay, well, thus far that hasn't panned out. But on the unfortunate side is that you also cut a lot of jobs,
and that's the part that isn't fact. Like when you cut 19,000 jobs, like, and I had
these are high paying positions, and so the bottom line gets cut by 19,000 jobs. So let's say the average salary is 200, maybe. You're talking about millions of dollars that you're in savings, right? So you're actually, and that's one of the things he spoke about. We're going to find out ways to be more efficient with what we have. How do we do more with less?
Yeah.
These are so like when you start to see companies and you're trying to figure out like how are they making so much, right? We watched Amazon, they beat their earnings, right? Nobody talked about that. Everybody was like, hey, look how far, you know, Facebook has appreciated the $30 billion for Zuckerberg, but quietly, and not so quietly, Jeff Bezos made 12 billion on Thursday. 12 billion on the humble, right? So they also cut jobs. And so you start to see these things. These are the ways that companies are trying to figure out how we're going to make the bottom line. Yes, we're going to cut jobs. We're going to be more efficient. But I got to give, like you said, Zuckerberg a lot of credit for calling out the flaws and really showing composure, right? Like I said, the day he was in front of Congress and he got up and he spoke, I didn't think he would, but he did. Extreme composure. The next day, he knew what happened. It was going to happen. CEO, maybe. of the decade.
More so than Tim?
Yeah, thus far. Thus far. It's 4 years in. We're 4 years in. I think him and Jensen are in the running.
Yeah. Him and Jensen are really the
Those two.
Apple revenue still sliding on a quarterly basis, though. We'll talk about that later.
Yep.
So you definitely make a good point. Let me highlight what I could have done better. So, like, normally when I get into little spats with my little babies, you know what I mean? I lead with, you know what, you right. Let me tell you what I could do better next time, right? So I could have named the price where to get in after they laid off 11,000 people. When the changes were made, I could have, but last year I did highlight it. Like, after I had my 4 or 5 meetings with Meta, some of the changes that I talked about were initiated. I'm not saying I'm the sole reason, but maybe a little molecule had something to do with it. The layoffs, and then when they stopped investing heavily into the metaverse, I think we talked about it last year, that they were going to have a reversal. I didn't know that they were going to, hit all-time highs. And but would we be here if they continue to invest in the metaverse? I don't think so. The people who were affected, the 19,000 people who got laid off, that money became free off of the books, but it's the same capital that went into. So opposed to paying employees, you're not going to pay out a dividend to the investor class. Brilliant idea. So I know there's like a section of the internet that wants to see my demise publicly. It's not going to happen. But I will say, even though I hadn't been the biggest fan of the stock in 21 and most of 22, I got to commend Mark for a hell of a turnaround in 24. Shout out to John Wren Sr., Marn, everybody at HQ. I appreciate you. I'll be back soon. But no, TikTok as a social media platform is not better than IG. I checked that off list twice. And if I made you money on Nvidia, AMD, Lilly,
hey,
but then
hey,
also, so I went to the video.
Hold real quick, because I don't want you to just breeze by those two names. We'll talk about Lilly. We got to give you a lot of credit for that. We'll get there when we talk about the earnings. But Nvidia, so I told y'all, circle the calendar, the 21st of February.
Yep.
We'll be reporting tomorrow. We'll talk about Lilly. They'll be reporting. Whew, you want to talk about incredible?
Maybe. Talk about one of the calls of the year. Whoa. Back to back.
Before we leave this Meta conversation, I went to the videotape, and you actually did predict that it was going to go to 466. A few years
ago, my brother.
Yeah, for sure. So it's
that's brotherhood.
It's at 4.
Y'all not getting us fighting.
So you did actually accurately predict the price for sure. So the next question is Meta stock. All right, that's the number one question, right? Should you invest in Meta? Is it too late? Do you have to wait for a pullback? What's the projection? Because now Meta's on everybody's radar now. So it's like, okay, now as far as for investors looking into Meta, what's the game plan?
How much growth is potentially possible for the rest of the year?
Here's the thing. Meta, and Mark was sneaky in the shade. But there's this ocean of data that they have, and all of our information, the DMs, everything posted on Facebook, WhatsApp. That ocean of raw data, I think, and I said it last year too in that same episode. They have some really good big plans in AI before the AI thing was talked about. So I'm interested to see what they do with all of that data over the next 3 or 4 months. I can see them pushing up to 528 or maybe 530 by end of the year as a result. And I said it once I saw Mark in the ring with Izzy, and Elon didn't want to fight him. That boy was on a tear. So I have them going into the 530s, but I think they're pushing to AI no one is talking about, and I think it would have the greatest impact on the stock. As far as when they get in, you got to wait for it to pull back. It should pull back in a couple weeks. February is one of the worst months for the stock market because all the hedge fund money starts to flow in around March. So look for an entry sometime this year, but maybe like 440 or 460. If you see 440 or 458 wouldn't be a bad entry if you're looking to get in, but be very patient. I wouldn't jump in now because of the hype. Wait for a price that you find is feasible. A 10% pullback would be great, and then you'll be a-okay. But look out for what they're doing in AI because they're not talking about it. Same with Apple. Apple's being very quiet about whatever LLM they're building for Siri.
Yeah.
The race is going to get super competitive, and I'm excited to see what happens this year.
Yeah, I think you touched on a number of good points. I was gonna say in the 5-10 race conservatively, but the AI race is that's the real thing, right? Like
It's heating up.
when they talked about their future guidance, I think it was very strategic of them 2 weeks ago when you were talking about buying Nvidia chips and how much money they spent. Very strategic. You're telling your investors we're
Absolutely.
looking forward to the future. We're going to be part of it. We're going to be a leader in it, and to show you this is what we're spending on probably the most important company of the past 2 years, which is Nvidia. And so
Yeah.
that was a brilliant move. But I'm glad that you were. And if you didn't, I was going to do it for you. When people
Thank you.
ask when should I look at historically, especially everybody since we've started the show in the past 4 years, look at the return in February and March. Just go back and look at the historically for the past 4 years how February and March have looked, and even early April. When we're talking about investing, and it should give you a good indication of when a good time would be. So yeah, I'm with you on that. You said 530s. I'm gonna go conservatively 510, maybe to
Yeah.
515. But yeah, I'm with you all the way on that.